Wasn't that amazing? Let's go and find some more folk to...
Don't film this. Or maybe do.
Yeah, actually, no, when you see TV gold, it's not as easy to get on and off as it looks, is it, really?
Well, no. There we go. Hey!
Good luck. So this is... Can I clip a mic on you? We're live streaming.
Yes, if you want.
Just pop that on there, somewhere, wherever's... You've got lots of things to clip to there, can't help but notice.
It's convenient,
You're not really short of places to clip, so...
No.
Jenny wants to be a Roman now. You've already inspired her.
Oh,
do you fancy donning the chainmail? So you hear the clatter as it dropped there. Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I pick it up, just get a sense of it?
Yeah, feel free. It's somewhere in the region of 11 or 12 kilos, that one.
Do you know, I'm struggling to hold that out at arm's length. That is... So that's all riveted together, isn't it?
Yep.
Individual links. And why was chainmail so effective? Why did it last so long through history?
Because it is good at what it does.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, mail is very good protection against slashing blows.
Yeah.
If you cut at me with a sword, you're not going to do too much damage to me. You might
anything
bruise
going across,
me,
it's going to hurt.
You're not going to do too much damage otherwise. What it's less good against is piercing damage, so arrows, thrusting spears.
So from the arrows coming in here, 300...
that would slap through like I wasn't even wearing it.
And be still going next week, wouldn't it?
But if you wear a bit of padding underneath the mail, which is what that garment that is just taken off, that combines with the metal as well to provide a bit of blunt force trauma protection as well. So the combination is quite good. And although mail is quite labour intensive to manufacture, it doesn't have to be that skilled labour.
Yeah.
Kids could make it, quite honestly.
Because once repetition.
Once you've made the wire, then it's just a case of linking it together into a certain pattern and closing up the rivets, which you can do with pliers or a small hammer.
So we don't pictorially, we don't normally think of Romans and kind of chainmail. We tend to think of the breastplates and
Indeed,
obviously that kind of classic look. But obviously, the fact that you're here, it was extensively used, was it, by the Romans?
For the majority of Roman military history, mail was the principal form of armour.
Yeah.
And even in the 1st and 2nd centuries, when we see the lorica segmentata, the banded plate armour, that was, as far as we know, worn by legionaries, not auxiliary troops, and it only lasted for that couple of 100-year period. When you get into the 3rd century, all the evidence again suggests that they just reverted to wearing mail.
Yeah. And I'm noticing it's not really impeding your movement, is it? I mean, obviously it's heavy, I guess, but you seem to be quite able to...
This one weighs about 10 kilos. So it's not as heavy as my friends here, but it's not as long.
But it's an even spread of weight, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It gets you on the shoulders, but you put a nice tight belt on around the hips, and that takes some of the weight off your shoulders.
Yes.
And, I mean, I've had this on since 10 o'clock this morning, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't restrict your motion at all. You can move in it, you can run, you can jump, you can do what you need to do. This arm guard.
So show me about the arm guard then. What's all this about then?
So
you've got one, not two.
Yes, I've only got one. This is called a manica.
Right.
And it's basically, again, it's like the lorica segmentata. It's made out of little plates riveted onto leather straps.
Yeah.
So it's very heavily articulated so that it doesn't, again, restrict
my motion.
leather
strap is underneath. Yeah.
It's designed to wear on the sword arm.
Yep.
Because if you imagine I've got a shield on this arm,
of course you have.
I don't need one
on
this arm.
Yeah.
And this is the arm that, if I'm attacking with a sword, is out there.
Yeah.
And it's laminated this way,
so
that if a blade strikes against it, then it scuds up the blade.
Because that'd be a very vulnerable place if you got a
if it laminated
there,
the other way, then the blade would dig in.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's a dangerous place to get hit, isn't it, on your arm? So that's a really vital protection, then, isn't it?
The reason why Romans started wearing these, they started wearing these again in the early 2nd century AD, during the Emperor Trajan's invasion of Dacia, which is modern-day Romania.
Yes.
And the reason is because the Dacian shock troops used a particular type of sword.
Yeah.
Keith, could you pass me my falx? Cheers, buddy. And this is an example.
Right. Good Lord, that is a...
So this is called a falx. It's a single-edged battle scythe.
Yeah.
The turned-off bill on the hook on the top.
Yeah.
According to Roman authors, was capable of punching through a helmet.
Right, okay.
And you could imagine that the shearing force of this, when swung, will easily take a limb off.
Yes.
And so, when they encountered these weapons, the Romans quickly did battlefield modifications to their armour.
Yeah.
Put cross-bracing on the helmets to make them stronger.
Yeah.
And also started wearing the manica and greaves on the legs again.
Because the first soldiers to encounter this, then will be a nasty surprise for them.
Must have scared the heck out of them, And probably what they did was they would have groups of these up-armoured legionaries acting in groups, and when the armies engaged, if there were some falksmen battering away at one part of the line, they would send these flying squads in, essentially, with the extra armour.
Got you.
To punch a hole through their own line to face them down.
But the Romans seem very adaptable, don't they? They seem to be able to deal with the challenge that are thrown at them, whether it's the landscapes, whether it's new technologies, different enemies and so forth. They seem to find a way, don't they, to reassert their dominance.
Once Dacia was conquered, the Romans did what they always did, which was then recruit the young men of the Dacian tribes into their own army.
Yeah.
And a cohort of 1,000 Dacian infantrymen was sent to Britain.
Yeah.
And they ultimately ended up around about 200 AD, based on Hadrian's Wall at Bird Oswald Fort. And that's what I'm portraying today.
So somebody's asking you about the heat. Actually, if you were at Hadrian's Wall, you'd be really quite pleased, wouldn't you, at the insulation of this body. Can we have a look at these fantastic helmets on here?
Just
tell us a little bit about... Because I understand that with helmets, really, it was kind of up to how much money you want to spend rather than being particular design. Is that right?
To an extent. I mean, there were basic designs, and if you're a common squaddy, you're going to have a fairly basic helmet.
Yeah.
If you're an officer, you'll maybe have a bit more embellishment on it.
Yeah.
So the Centurion's helmet here, this is based upon a find from Germany.
Yeah.
It's round about 150 AD onwards.
Yeah.
So it's post that Dacian War that we just mentioned, and you can see that by that point the design incorporates cross-bracing and a brow reinforce here to make it stronger.
So it's very rigid.
So it's a bit heavier, but it's much tougher than earlier
And the
helmets.
teeth of this would probably just quite a bit of damage to your sword, wouldn't they, if you tried to come in?
Well, they might do. I mean, this is a direct copy of one that was found at Vindolanda up near Hadrian's Wall again, and it's the only bit that survives is the helmet brim, but it has this dog tooth serration, so it's absolutely right for the period.
And would you wear? You got obviously like a soft felt hat on. Would you keep that on underneath to stop the?
You can see there's some padding inside this helmet.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of extra there to stop it just rocking round on my head, and some on the cheek pieces. But this actually provides a reasonable amount of padding in its own right.
Indeed.
If I wasn't wearing this, I'd want more padding inside the.
But again, if you got a blow to the head wearing that, you're going to have it ringing ears, aren't you? You're going to know about it.
It might switch you off for a few minutes, if nothing else. Yeah, definitely.
But that's a bit, and so we've got the eagle, haven't we? Which is obviously the traditional.
We've got an eagle holding a snake on the front, and then on the back we've got, these have been interpreted as being temple buildings, essentially.
Got you.
Very kind of Roman motifs.
And did the plumage of that denote anything? Was it kind of rank or different regiments and legions or whatever? Do they have different plumage?
Possibly. I mean, basically the transverse crest on this helmet denotes a centurion.
Yeah.
So a man in charge of 80 men.
Yeah. Not 100.
Nope.
That's a commonly held.
Yeah, you think centurion, century 100, but actually a Roman century was 80 men. Not
80 men.
Yeah.
So that's a basic infantry unit, is 80 men.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the guys that we saw marching around there with the pioneers, with the swords, with the shields, 80 of them is a basic fighting unit.
Yes.
Yeah. And a legion about 5,000 or so, is that right?
Thereabouts, yeah. It varies across time. As we get later into period, units become smaller. So by the time we get to the 4th century, what you call a legion might only be 2,500, 3,000 men.
Yeah.
But as with everything else, military organisation changes over time.
Sure.
And the Romans were in Britain for 350 odd years.
So it's bound to go up and down.
Things change, yeah.
And depending on where the pressure's elsewhere, they might redeploy.
Absolutely.
So, just asking, is there a story behind the eagle and the snake then? What does it actually represent? Or is that just a popular motif?
It's just, as far as I'm aware, it is just a fairly common motif.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't, I don't think it denotes a particular story or fable or anything like that. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know for definite.
Perfect. Listen, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to... These guys, this is the guy that was very delicately shrugging off the the chainmail when we arrived. I didn't mean to spare your blushes, but can we have a look at your sword? Because that's a beautiful bit of copper, is it, on the handle?
It's a copper-wrapped handle, and this is just a solid piece of brass which has been milled out, and in this case it's red enamel. The original is a gold foil-wrapped hilt with solid gold pommel and solid gold crossguard as well, with red ruby capuchons.
And presumably in archaeological excavations, it's the sort of things like the hilt that actually survive. That's what been found, so they would know that this would be pretty representative.
Yeah, so in this case, this is actually based on an actual archaeological find from Pouen, France.
Yep.
This is dated to about...
Oh, in the Pyrenees, down that way?
I think so.
So the French-Spanish border, I've been, yeah.
My geography of France isn't great, but around that period, around that area. And all of it survives, actually, in this case. So all of the actual sword construction, actual blade survives as well.
Yeah.
And it can be found in the Pouen Museum. The scabbard, on the other hand, has disintegrated.
Yeah.
But what they did find, and what I haven't shown in this case, is that it was attached to whoever owned it via 2 small lozenges, which were made in exactly the same manner as the hilt and pommel.
Yeah.
Or gold.
So that's leather construction, so that would have just perished over time with the elements, as you might say.
Basically.
But there was a fantastic find, if you've ever seen a picture, they found a Roman sandal here in York in the 70s, and you just see the studs, don't you? You can see the outline of where the sandal would have been, but it's only the metal of the studs. Yeah. And so often it's about piecing together, isn't it, what we don't have with what we know to then be able to get this fantastic rendering that you guys do and bring it all to life.
With some of the swords, the hilt constructions will usually survive purely because they're made from precious metals. So they're less reactive, whereas the iron will just generally perish. But in this case, there's the ancillary sax which goes with this sword. All of them survived.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best examples of 5th century Sparta and long, narrow sax.
So we have a real high degree of confidence, can't we, that what's being done here in recreation is very, very historically accurate.
Yeah, in this case, there are some minor errors, but that was due to the fact that it's easier for the weaponsmith to make it in this manner.
Sure.
So we can have a very high level of confidence, but whether it's 100% accurate, it's trying to recreate the craftsmanship of yesteryears.
Fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for your time and your passion, and
You're very
keep going. Thank you very, very much.